Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги, добрый день, уважаемые спикеры, участники нашей панельной
Good
дискуссии.
afternoon, dear colleagues, dear speakers, participants of our panel discussion. Today our discussion is called Driving Industries of Development of the Composites Market in Russia and the World. I would introduce the speakers with whom we will have a conversation today on different subjects, and I'm pleased that the speakers here present different industries, and we will talk with all of them what's happening in the composite industry, how the pandemic influenced the development of composite development, and what is the nearest future. First of all, I would like to introduce Kirill Komarov, first Deputy General Director of Rosatom,
Дмитрий Алексеевич Лысогорский, директор
Dmitry Lysagorsky, Director of Department of Aviation Industry of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, Alexander Tunin, Director General of the Umatex company Rosatom,
Фредерик Ру, медиадиректор
Frederick Rue, Media Director of Jackpalt,
Бахадырович Каланов, руководитель
Alisher Kalanov, Head of the Rosnano Department, Giovanni Tofaluti, Managing Director of Fiber Company,
Владимир Александрович Середоха,
Vladimir Seredocha, General Director of Srednyenevsky Shipyard Company,
Михаил Валерьевич Лившиц, председатель Совета
Mikhail
директоров,
Livchits, Chairman of the Board of Directors of Novatec Company, Sergei Vakhridinov, Chairman of the Board of Directors of Rus Composite,
Дарья Юрьевна Борисова,
Daria
управляющий
Borisova, Managing Director of Sibur Company,
Андрей Александрович Лаптев, директор
Andrei Laptev, Business Development and Corporate Venture Project Director of Severstal. Our today's discussion, as I have said, will be dedicated to the status of the composite industry in 2020, what we will see in the nearest future next year, or expand the horizons, discuss the situation in the aviation, in aircraft engineering, in city, in shipbuilding, in other industries like engine engineering. What are our concerns, how we can develop our industries, and what at the end is a driver of development. Lately, there is a trend which I have noticed, and many people say that composite is slowing its development down. And according to many experts, we are not at the peak, but at the curve of saturation, let's say. This is the issue which I would like to make the subject of our today's discussion, to discuss it with the speakers. First of all, I would like to give the floor to Kirill Komarov, First Deputy Director General of Rosatom Corporation. I believe that everybody knows Rosatom Corporation. I believe that recently the corporation became not only something we get used to, nuclear energy, but also the most high-tech company in the sphere of new technologies, of new energy types. Kirill, what is composites for you, for Rosatom? Could you please share with us? I believe that it will be very interesting for our viewers. Dear colleagues, thank you very much. For the first time,
Включите, пожалуйста, звук, Кирилл Борисович.
Пауза. Так, что скажу? Первый блин кубом, ничего страшного.
question again, but something always goes wrong. I believe that after that, our panel discussion will be just fine and very fruitful. Could you please tell us about Rosatom Corporation's activities, how the new businesses are developing, what is your strategy? It will be very interesting for us to listen to you. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, the key lesson which we always have to learn from pandemic, especially the high-tech operation, is to learn how to use the remote communication means. Let us believe that this impediment is already in the past. This forum is the first online forum of all the 8 composite forums. We understand that it's because of the pandemic situation with these precaution measures which we have to follow. That is why during my today's presentation, I would like to talk not only about our approaches to business in new segments, but about our lessons learned on this situation with pandemic and on the measures which are necessary to provide sustainable development in the segment of new materials despite the current turbulence. The first conclusion is the necessity to continue the accelerated development of digitalization and remote services. I believe that for new materials industry, it's of special importance. Development of digital technologies allow us to move forward in design of products, optimization of manufacturing processes, decreasing of certification terms. Experts believe that in the nearest future, digitalization will provide us the decrease in by certification terms 1 year instead of 3 years that we have today. That is why our key task is to focus on digitalization. We have a number of digital projects in the segment of new materials. One of the examples is unified national digital platform on new materials, which will collect information from different databases, in particular about the parameters, materials, processes, research and development, registered materials, certification, cost of materials. We believe that such a platform will allow us to accelerate in accelerated rates, implement and introduce new materials, provide the transfer of solutions received, and of course will eliminate the risk of duplicating in development of new materials. We are about to finish this platform in 2021. The same year there will be a prototype of this platform, and after that we will start operating this platform. In the nearest future, we plan to work on first digital twins in the process of composite materials development, which will allow us to develop new composites with the preset parameters without additional costs. Number two is that we prove the efficiency of approach on formation, the most efficient vertical integrated chains of supply and production line. It allows us to provide for continuous supply on each industrial and production side despite the pandemic risks, geopolitical limitations, and which is more important, this provides us an opportunity to control significantly both quality and net cost of the materials, also to increase marginality, to sign long-term contracts. For example, raw materials is 80% factor of the strength of material and 40% of its cost. And today, the cost of fiberglass is 5 to 10%, and when we have the ready product, we can achieve such a level of marginality, which will allow us to return investment and to invest in development on new products. That is why we follow the principle of vertical integration in all the new material directions and areas. For composites, this year we finish all the necessary departments, ready products, fiber, glass, fiber carbon, etc. We built similar approach in our other directions, additive technologies where we do 3D printers and powders to them, services and manufacturing of products, rare earth metals from raw materials to the magnets for batteries, etc. And the current situation, of course, confirms the necessity of diversification. Today, we have very sad experience of companies which focused on one traditional industry, and the world, as we can see, is changing dramatically. There are the risks of business model based on the only product or one group of products. Under the pandemic conditions, to my point of view, is becoming more and more obvious. I am confident that we require expanding of range, maximum income, maximum revenue points. The portfolios of new business of Rosatom counts for 86 new areas, which are united in groups. There are areas which are strategic for us. There are areas which today have only the initial stage and where we make the first steps and checking which results do we have? And such a approach gives us results. Based on the results of the last year, the revenue on our new products is about 225 billion rubles. And by 2030, we are planning to increase this revenue by 7 times up to 1.6 trillion rubles, which will account for 40% of the whole amount of revenue of the corporation. It will provide us a very serious support for Rosatom when we will have an opportunity to maintain our priorities, and we will have an opportunity to rely on wide technological basis to have the necessary sustainability and also sources for additional development. As for new materials, we are actively developing 3 key areas in addition to composites. These are additive technologies, which I mentioned, and again we have a new area on construction functional materials, and today we supply our materials to 8 different industries, which contributes to not only the diversification task of our business, but also processes related with diversification of businesses and processes in our country. Developing new areas of business, we focus on formation of operation chains and internal order. A good example, of course, is wind energy, because significant parts of the tasks on deep localization of the manufacturing is solved by the Rosatom companies. The manufacturing platform generator is located on our machine building division, Atomenergomash. Our technological partner, Holland company Mercon, leading global manufacturer, designed and launched the new production line, which required more than 2,000 units of equipment. This technology has formed a very important order on permanent magnets. These led to the presence of rare earth metals, which, to be honest with you, is not present in Russia at the moment. And we involved our fuel division, which this year has started the supply of magnets. We started investment projects in order to support, to a full scale this production, and to have the full scale production by 2022. Of course, this includes the composite materials, the composite materials application. Infotex is already producing such components as the blisters, and this provides us an opportunity to fix our results in the wind and energy area. Despite the pandemic, this May we launched the largest wind park in Russia, 150 megawatts, and I believe that we will have an opportunity to set a new record and to open the new largest wind park in Stavropol region, and it will be the largest in Russia. In case of formation of our inner industry order on composite materials and additive technologies, today we implement the roadmaps, implement different organizations. In different organization of Rosatom, we determined our priority products, system of external reinforcement, composite fittings and reinforcement, and there are pilot projects where these products are applicable. Polymer and composite materials are will be first of all be implemented when nuclear energy power station launching, nuclear energy sector on production sites. For example, today the composites are actively implemented on the polygons related with polygons for waste treatment, because another task is the first and second class of hazard waste treatment. We additionally consider application of composites in Arctic infrastructure, carbon, and other industries. Power station, the key tasks of the roadmaps, which I mentioned, not only to provide the industry with the advanced materials, but also to form the competence of personnel, so they knew how to work with that and to elaborate the necessary decisions to experts that to other countries' market, because any product from the first day of its launching should be competitive on the global market. Our partners are, and I would like to thank them. They are really interested in our composite solutions. We work actively together in such spheres: Roscosmos, Gazprom, Russian railways, implementing composites on Rosgidro sites, the hydroelectric power station, and other power stations. And to summarize, I would like to expand on the following interesting point. Alexei Likhatchov expanded on the roadmap on technologies of new materials and substances, and the national targets set. These targets cannot be achieved alone, despite the fact that Rosatom is assigned a coordinator by the government of the Russian Federation. We are seriously striving to unite our efforts with all the participants of these processes, representatives of business circles, science, and governmental authorities. That is why the Center of Competence on Roadmap Development, Additive Technologies, Composites are based on different associations in the industry. Composite area will be developed on the basis of created by us in 2018 interregional industrial cluster Composites Without Borders, which today includes 36 participants and partners. By the end of this year, we would like to expand its membership in from 3 regions: Republic of Tatarstan, Saratov, and Moscow regions. We'd like to expand it to 5 regions. Ulyanovsk and Tula region will join us. And taking this opportunity, I would like to invite not only regional heads and authorities, but all the participants, all the companies to join to our area of activity. Another aspect is partnership network development. A couple of examples in this sphere. Together with Rosnano, we established a joint venture, Composite Invest, to implement projects in the segment of end products in different industries. And there is a very good project with Sibur, where we work together on new composite materials based on thermoplastic and high molecular polyethylene. I hope that Daria will talk about that today. And to summarize, I would like to say that the task of development of new materials industry in Russia is both complicated and necessary. It's impossible without innovative, advanced materials. Russian industry is under risk to become non-competitive on the global market. This task could be resolved only by joint efforts. That is why the key task of our forum is not only share our success, our stories, our cases, some solutions we found, or problems, but is to form the potential direction of cooperation, which we will implement in the nearest future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I listened to you very attentively, and I'm highly interested in certain dimensions that you mentioned. And in terms of wind energy, I hope that you will strive for more localization, maybe to localize the manufacturing of blades, because it consumes new raw materials and the technological breakthrough that is needed in our industry. Yes, the blades are manufactured in Ulyanovsk, but it is 100% foreign company. And I really hope to see one day 100% Russian technology. I would like to talk about additive technologies. It is one of the most revolutionary dimensions. If we will be able to replace metals with additive technologies, maybe not for the constructions with high load, but for medium load, it will be a revolution in metal processing. Just imagine the amount of equipment used for metal processing. 90% of metal is going into the chips that we sell back to metal companies. Additive technology can be a breakthrough and a revolution. And what you do together with Rosatom is a fantastic endeavor. And we would like to join our efforts, us as clients, researchers who research, developers who come up with 3D printers, and all other stakeholders. Good luck. We are ready to participate in this activity. I would like to say that in terms of new materials and additive technologies, we don't have any other alternative. I didn't speak about it in my presentation. I would like to add one thing. There will be another perspective on this situation. Everything that is related to SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. I'm deeply convinced that, okay, maybe for Russia, they are not high on the agenda, but now I see that more and more companies understand the importance of this activity. But we see that on our key markets, as the Gs are used as an essential philosophy. And your example between traditional metal processing and the results that can be achieved while using additive technologies, uh, I I'm not afraid to be a better prophet, and I will say that in the near future, all technologies that are conventional and that will consume huge amount of energy and natural resources will not be in high demand. Because one day they will be made illegal. Banks will not be keen to lend money. Uh, Investors will not be ready to invest in not green technologies. The more benefits of the new industrial paradigm we will be showing, the more demand we will see for additive technologies. Because in my humble opinion, we will have no other choice. My wish is to live in this reality. Next, I would like to speak about aircraft industry and the use of composites in aircraft manufacturing. And we have a good representative of the industry. But composites in aircraft production manufacturing, we understand where we use them. Maybe you will elaborate a bit more about this market. But as a representative of the ministry, maybe you can elaborate about support measures of aircraft industry. Maybe you can talk about scientific and technology advancements that should be done. What what is needs to be done now to be in the elite in 10 and 15 years? Thank you very much. I'm very glad to have this opportunity to present. Without any doubt, aircraft manufacturing is something that gave birth to composite industry. Brothers Wright made their first aircraft from composites. Now we are talking about glass fibers and other cutting-edge materials. Additive technologies are well mentioned here. For us, they are mostly connected with metals, but there is a cross point in terms of new requirements, new standards, and new materials. When we talk about the creation of new legal framework in terms of the use of new composed materials, and we see that composites, that we are only scratching the surface in terms of the use of composites in the aircraft manufacturing. With great pleasure, I will bring into light MC-21 aircraft example in order to illustrate the success story related to the creation of the longest composite aircraft wing. It is very interesting, but what about support measures and scientific and technological advancement? Two things that you asked me about.
Необходимо непрерывно поддерживать.
The advancement exists already, but it should be maintained as well. We have special state programs that provide financing for tests, experimentals, new materials developments. I will not talk about the amounts. They seem to me sufficient to maintain our scientific and technological activity on the level that is more or less in line with the essential technological trends. What about the support measures of the use of components? It's a bottleneck and a pain point in a way for us. If we will focus only on the implementation of composites in one aircraft, helicopter or airplane, doesn't matter. We will not be able to reduce production costs using the economy of scale. We need to make larger use of technologies. Therefore, we work on comprehensive support measures that will allow us to combine monetary and non-monetary initiatives to force, in a way, companies from different industry sectors to make a larger use of composites. This will allow to increase composites production volume and decrease the cost. It is very important to come up with an accurate legal framework. Manufacturing capacities are ready, and other speakers talked about the characteristics of composites. But in several industries, we suffer from the lack of a legal framework. Our ministry's departments work on that together with Rostandard because Minister Mantov asked us to do so. Thank you very much, Dmitry Alexeyevich. I agree that legal framework plays an important role. When MC-21 was in development back in 2009, we were lacking around 50% of legal documents. Now it's better. Many regulations have been already adopted, but there are many things to be done, including new materials used in aviation, not only in aviation, in other industries as well. Scientific and technological advancements were mentioned by me, not making up a subject. because applied science should meet the objectives that are set by the market. And I hope the ministry will back this idea up. A really good trend has been mentioned. Science intensive industries alone cannot guarantee the required amount of composite parts, allowing composite manufacturers to guarantee the margin and decreased production cost. The main drawback of a composite material is its price. And over the last 10 years, we were not able to decrease the price even for 1%. It's not a Russian issue, it's a global issue. And I would like to talk about your business and your perspective of your um, manufacturing capacities development. Because we count on you. We want to use your materials. What's going to happen? Not in aviation. Thank you very much. Do you mind rolling my presentation, please? I would like to say that I will elaborate not on the development of our company, but on the trends on the market and on the use of polymers, not only in aviation, but in other industries. I would like to talk about three major trends. I'd like to welcome all participants of the forum. I would like to prove that composites are here to stay. First, because they have unique characteristics, and second, because they are in demand within key technological trends. They are lighter than steel 5 times. They are high resistant to temperature, high corrosive resistance. They don't suffer from in ionized environment. They can be reliable up to 100 years. This is why they are used in space, automotive, sport, healthcare, energy, and other industries. The leading industry is aviation, both in Russia and abroad. And I would like to use it to illustrate three main trends. First, resilience and long-lasting use of trends. And Airbus and Boeing replaced 50% of all plane components with the composites one, and we are dealing with uh, people's safety and lives. We can decrease the weight of plane for 20% by increasing for the same amount of its efficiency. There's a possibility to decrease the number of parts for 20%, can decrease for 30% maintenance costs. And the results are on the screen. 50% of all plane components on the modern plane is from composites. Russian aircraft has 30% of composite parts. It takes time to implement from the scratch composites in the industry in order to replace 20% of parts with composites. It took 30 years, but to gain 20% more, only 10 years were needed. And I think that the growth will be exponential. The presentation doesn't work? No, it does. The next industrial revolution creates global technological trends that are based on compost. No, renewable energy, solar panel 100% composed, green transport, composite body works on cars, gas transport on methane and hydrogen, able to retain gas pressure, high-speed trains, cars, and vessels are made from composites, allowing to shape the parts with high dynamics and required characteristics in precise parts of the body. Drones are almost completely made from composites, and sport and healthcare uh, composite prostheses are not rejected by the body, not even talking about hockey sticks that are present almost in every family. We forecast double-digit growth of consumption in 5 industries. Wind energy will guarantee the increase of demand from 2 to 3 times, both in inland wind farms and in offshore wind farms. The blade size is more than 1,000 meters offshore, and blades are made 100% from composites. Drone development and civil aviation developments will bring 2 to 2.5 times growth. Sport composite equipment are is here to stay, and sport tools and gear are becoming increasingly light. And from automotive industry, the growth will be at the level of 3.5%. Regardless of the low share of Russian composites globally, it accounts for 1% only. The trends in Russia are almost exactly the same. Aerospatial industry is taking the lead. Uh, Leading Italian shipyards are using Russian composite components. The Ministry of Commerce and Trade adopted the program to use composites in shipbuilding. New spare parts for wind turbines are already manufactured in Russia, including fixtures, glass fiber tubes, and accessories are more and more often used in oil and gas and house utilities. Now, energy industry is increasingly using composites in construction and maintenance of nuclear powers, not even talking about healthcare, green energies, recycling polygons protection or security system. We manufacture smart children prostheses here in Russia, not talking about sport gears. Yes, the trend is here. We are lagging behind, but we will not stop moving. Humatex and Rosatom, together with Rosnano, created a JV Composite Invest to invest in new project, not only from our 2 companies, but we are ready to invest in any and every project in the market. If you have an interesting project, please come to us. We'll find an opportunity to promote it further. Rosatom, together with market participants, created the roadmap of new materials and substances that has been adopted by the government earlier this year. The goal is to be one of the global technological leaders by 2030. Come up with certification system, manufacture composite products, and so on and so forth. Center of competences is our cluster Composites Without Borders. Our key goals is to create an ecosystem and cooperation to trigger the demand and to ensure state support. The road map provides four key support measures in technology and size, the creation of materials, items, and the development of the demand. I would like to highlight the three major support measures. First, comprehensive scientific and technical program with 10 billion rubles of investment in order to proceed to the subventions of breakthrough technologies has been adopted by the Ministry of Science, and soon it will be analyzed at the Scientific Council, the Presidential Scientific Council. Next, subvention of market participants of industrial clusters for the creation of products that can phase out imports, and maybe the most important, the development, the subvention of expenses to buy manufacturing assets abroad, and killing the corruption, killing all bottlenecks, and killing all impediments, we can trigger the market, and the government can make economies in terms of investment, because the great supply will bring buyers, and the development of the market of gas fuel will support the market as well. And wrapping up my presentation, I would like to say that this year Rosatom decided not to wait the adoption of the federal roadmap and adopted its own polymer material development roadmap. And the idea is not to use uniquely our own materials, but to bring in the nuclear industry all market participants. Humatext is a technology integrator, and we will help you first define technical specifications from the technical clients and with the promotion of your wonderful cutting-edge products in the nuclear industry.
Когда начинался тот же проект МС-21 там, в 2009 году, и что сейчас происходит в 2020. Вот мысль пришла следующая, что это совершенно вот как будто две различные планеты. На 2009 год мы ничего не имели того, из чего можно сделать высокотехнологичные изделия. Не было нормальных материалов, не было...
In 2009 we had nothing to be able to come up with products. We didn't have this, we didn't have that, but over the 10 years everything appeared. And thank you for our foreign colleagues, because they gave us a helping hand. They helped to create a fully independent industry. Yeah, everything that impedes us from moving makes us stronger. Sometimes I wish all industries were on the geopolitical sanctions, but they triggered as well the development of an industry. It's like a pyramid. And
Pyramids of people
who
who
do
provide
everything is needed.
equipment, who provide fittings, reinforcement materials, additional technologies, fixtures. And this pyramid is a very big one. In other industries as well, we become the top of this pyramid, which provide an impetus for development. When I started my discussion, I said that there was an opinion of experts that the composites are not growing. They are at the point of saturation. I would like to ask Frederick, what is your opinion? Are experts wrong? Are we right, or we are growing? Is question number one. And question number two is, what do you think about the global trends for the next coming years? And unfortunately, what the pandemic consequences will be and how fast will be the recovery?
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be with you from Paris in my office, and we will share a few information about the situation, the global situation, and the impact on the composite market. First, the last data from the International Monetary Fund, and you can see that the situation is not so good for this year. And for the mondial economy, we will attend a decrease of 4.9% for this year, but the situation is different between advanced countries and emerging and developing countries. And you can see that in the west part and US, the situation is not so good, and the COVID is expanding again, and certainly the economy and the composite industry will be impacted more and more in the few months. Next one, please. A few trends, and you can see the global growth is projected at less at 4.9% for 2020. We will have more and more extreme power people, and the World Bank is very disappointed about that. And you can see 80 to 115 million people in the world. It will be very bad. The situation is in China is not so bad. Actually, and for the second quarter, the growth is 11.5. It's very important to consider this. And for 2020, the situation in China is expected to grow 1.8. In fact, China will be certainly the only country to have a positive growth in 2020. And the optimistic data for 2021, we project a growth of 5.4%. It's a projection, but it's optimistic, and it's a good news for everybody. Next one, please. This is a situation of the composite industry at the end of the last year. You can see that the market is around 11.7 million tons for $86 billion worldwide, with three main markets, North America, China and Asia, and Europe. But you must consider that once again, China and other Asia Pacific region is the most important today, around 50% in volume and value also. It's important for the composite industry. We will see later. Next one. Once again, the growth of the past year, and the data we have for from 2020 to 2024 is optimistic, but I must escape the data because with the COVID, the situation is in trouble now, and we must rebuild on all the data. But last year, once again, the volume around 11.7 million tons. It's not so big, but the growth is interesting if you consider the last 10 years. Next one. And we must also consider that the composite market is a very small market if we compare to the other materials. And certainly we must learn before to compete the other material to work with them, because we are very, very small, and it's an opportunity for the composite industry, but at the same time, our competitors are very, very big if you consider the steel, the concrete, or aluminium, and wood. Certainly, we must learn to work together. It's certainly the best way for the composite industry. Next one. Here, the situation of the reinforcement, and you can see that the glass fiber is the most important reinforcement used worldwide, and with 87.7%. Then we have the natural fiber, and then we have the carbon fiber. Next one. Here you have the situation and the evolution of the use of thermoset and thermoplastic. And if you consider the trend, you can see that we use more and more thermoplastic, and particularly in the automotive industry. And if you consider also the obligation we have today to consider recycling, end of life, and so on, and the composite industry and the end users market ask for thermoplastic, especially if you consider the recycling objective, but it's not concerned only the automotive industry. As you know, Airbus and Boeing are also interested by thermoplastic. Here you have some information about the process used in the composite industry, and if you have a worldwide vision, you can see that in fact all the continuous process and automatic process are growing. You can see filament winding, for example, filtration, injection also, and compression are more used everywhere in the world. This is because we need to increase the quality of the product, and we must also guarantee to the end user the the capacity we have to reproduce every day the same quality. This is really important, and this is why we invest more and more on the automatic and continuous process. This is the main trend you must consider, not for the prototyping, but in general, we need to invest more and more in the process and automation. You have the repartition now by geography and application sector, and we must consider that the most important sector worldwide are transportation, include automotive, truck, highway, bus, subway, and so on, and construction. This is the main application sector worldwide. You have, and you can see different situation in Europe or in Asia, but if you consolidate the two sectors, building and construction and transportation are the most important sector. And this is true today, but it will be true tomorrow again. Next one. Here you have a summary of the situation for the composite industry with the use of matrix, the use of reinforcement. And on the left side, you can also have a specific focus on transportation and automotive. And you can see that the market will be driven by autonomous car in the future, certainly, but first by hydrogen and electric car. We will talk about hydrogen later. This is a real opportunity for the composite industry, and particularly for the carbon industry, because the situation in the aeronautic is very bad actually, and hydrogen is a really nice opportunity for the carbon industry. Next one. Here you know the value chain, and you can see that it's very complicated. It's not easy to understand. There is a lot of player, a lot of situation. You have many steps on the value chain, and this is absolutely important to understand. The value chain is not the same everywhere, and everywhere we have a specific situation. This is important to understand, and particularly for the composite industry. When she worked on his own development, the situation in Russia is totally different than in France, for example, or in China or other. And in each time we have a particular value chain, and this is what I put the attention of this, because it's not a global situation. It's really heterogeneous in each country, in each area. You can see here a landscaping with a few of the most important players, and I invite all the Russian company to contribute to this landscaping. There is so many players in all the value chain, and this is why we will have more and more concentration in the next few years, because certainly we have too many players, and we need to have big players. This is something we must understand, because as I show you, the composite industry is a small industry, only 11 million tons if we compare with the other materials, and for that we need to have a very, very strong company. Also small and medium size, because we need innovation and agility, but we must also big competitor to increase the market share of the composite industry. Next one. And this was just an overview of what's happened in 2019, and you can see that we have a consolidation, and this is true for all the step of the value chain. It's we must considering the consolidation for the material producer, also for the intermediate product, but also for processors. This is a trend that we can observe everywhere in the world. It's true in Europe, in North America, and in Asia. Next one. This is again a view of the situation before the COVID. It was the data of the last year, but you can see the penetration rates of composite material in each application sector. And you can see, for example, that we are very strong in energy if we considering the wind sector. And in fact, we are not so good everywhere, but we must consider that as an opportunity, and certainly in transportation or construction. This is my favorite application sector. Sure, we can increase the use of composite material in the building and construction, and this is a worldwide market. The need to rebuild and to build new building is true everywhere. We must also consider the infrastructure, and the composite material are very, very well positioned to increase their market share in this application sector. Okay. And now hydrogen. And as you know, everywhere, it's true in China, it's true in France, in Europe, everywhere. The regulation is more and more strict, and big cities as Paris, for example, have very strict regulation to fight the pollution. And the diesel, for example, will be forbidden in the city in a few years. And at the same time, the government in Europe and in America, in China too, I don't know the situation in Russia, but everywhere we can observe very, very important investment in hydrogen. This is the example of automotive, but hydrogen is used also for tramway, buses, railway, and shipbuilding, marine. And we have also now Airbus and certainly Boeing are working on a hydrogen solution. But if you consider the automotive industry, for each car you need 2 pressure vessels, at least 70 kilo of carbon fiber by car. You imagine last year we have produced 100 million car, passenger and commercial car. It's a real opportunity for the carbon industry and composite in general. Hydrogen need carbon and composite in general for the pressure vessel, but also for the battery box. There is a big opportunity for us in the evolution of the automotive industry, but also truck railway.
Я прошу прощения, я не на секунду прерву вас.
I apologize. Please respect timing because we are limited in time. We have many speakers and we are very limited in time. I beg your pardon. I will have to interrupt you. That is why please shortly.
Next one. I finish in a few minutes. And another opportunity is the recycling. And if you compare again with the other material we are competing, the composite is not so good in terms of recycling, end of life, and so on. And if we are able to put on the market attractive new material, certainly we can increase the market share of the composite industry. This is a real subject and topic for the composite industry. We can observe everywhere plastic bashing. We must be prudent with this. We are not alone, and the competition with the other material is very strong in terms of recycling. So next slide show you what we attend for the next few years. And once again, transportation and construction are the main market will drive the composite industry in the few years. Okay. Here's the situation now by region, and China definitely is a growing market, and we can see that during the crisis, the situation is not so bad in China, and but we have a lot of opportunity everywhere, and certainly we must be innovative to increase the penetration rate of composite material in the application sector we are, but also for new opportunity, and innovation is certainly the best way to increase our production and penetration. And now the conclusion. As you see, the situation is not so good everywhere. It's not image, it's true. And certainly the composite market is projected to register a negative growth of 4.54 during the period, and it's 2020. The data come from research and market. We are also working on an update of our JEC observer, and actually the data we have are similar. And this is why I use the research and market data, and the situation is the same for us. Analysis is very close. Then natural fiber is also a good opportunity for the composite, and as I told you, the regulation is more and more strict everywhere, and people work on bioproduct, biocomposite, recycling, and so on. And natural fiber is also an opportunity for us. We do not use natural fiber everywhere. As I told you, there is also opportunity for the carbon industry, and particularly actually in the hydrogen application. Next one. Thermoplastic, I told you, the demand for thermoplastic is increasing everywhere. And sorry.
Давайте мы уже немножко будем ускоряться.
Unfortunately, we are really out of time, because otherwise other speakers will not have chance to speak.
Worldwide, we must consider the wind energy application sector to drive the volume for the next months, because it's linked to the governmental policy, and we have a lot and more investment in terms of renewable energy. And today the wind energy is relatively stable if we compare to the other application sector. Donc, wind energy, thermoplastic, and natural fiber could be opportunity for the composite to compete and to increase our market share. Thank you for your attention. And the next JEC Observer, as I told you, will be available in December with new data. And certainly, I hope so, information to help you to build your business for the next few years. Thank you again for your attention. Thank you.
Огромное за выступление.
Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for your presentation. Of course, it's a complicated situation with COVID pandemic. We have no advantages from that, unfortunately, in 2020, and looks like in 2021 we will not have our exhibition, which is a very important event for us, composite world. Aviation and transport is meeting, and this is a barrier which does not allow us to develop together, but we cannot do anything here. And the next question which I would like to discuss is wind energy is a very interesting direction of composite industry. Great that Russian Federation is also developing in. Recently, I would like to give the floor to Alisher Kalamov, person who is responsible for wind energy in Rosnano Corporation. There is state support of this industry. What will happen after 2024? Nobody knows. Will this support be continued? It's very important sector which has a very serious effect of multiplication in our industry. What do you think will happen in the next year? What will happen after 2024? Will the support be continued? What will be required? Please. Good afternoon, colleagues. On the one hand, the question is very extended, but I have an advantage of the person who is presenting almost the last in the session because many issues were covered by my colleagues. To be honest, I would say that wind is very important, but not number one and not the last for the composite industry. And answering the question by Rosnano, I would speak differently. It's 10 plus 10. We are one of the first institutions which started investing in this composite industry. The first projects were related with production of carbon fiber and other company, and the first companies which started using basalt and plastic were also Rosnano invested company. And one of the key question is our basic materials, and this is our investment focus.
Therefore, in composites, in materials, we've been working for a long time. We did many years ago our first investments that are now independent companies, and they are developing rapidly on the market. Wind power appeared as a logic follow-up on this investment mandate. We saw a synergy of the new industry within a larger energy industry. And second component, yes, it is important to localize manufacturing, and the program valid by 2024 has important requirements in terms of manufacturing localization. And we saw the synergy between the production of components and the construction of manufacturing plants, and they went hand in hand with modern challenges. We indeed constructed our first plant. It is working just fine. 200 blades manufactured. Blades are going on export. So now it is satisfying the needs of downstream players. with a portfolio of more than 1.8 gigawatts. What will be after the first program? In 2024, we think that now this program is in the point of a decision making. Not whether the program should exist or not. It should exist. The conceptual decision has been taken already at the highest level in the government. Now, it is important to come up with details, with legal framework, and with specific characteristics of this program, because this program will have major challenges for players. First, more localization, more expert, higher efficiency, and working on bids and tenders. And these three requirements from the new program show new technological development of new components that were coined in the first program and will be maintained and developed in the second support program that is now, as I said, is in the point where we can wait in the next couple of weeks the decision being taken. And we'll be waiting for new plans to be constructed. And the composite component is very important because we understand that our first stage product should be modified and improved, and it's all about size. New wind turbines in Russia and new characteristics of blades, new reinforcement elements. They are different. Mainstream today is the reinforcement of longeron using fibers, but there is a possibility to manufacture larger blades from glass, plastic, and for us the major technique is reinforcement. We started with the blade of 62 meters that is manufactured in Ulyanovsk right now. And all component bases of the plate and everything that is in it is a content that should be localized and manufactured in Russia. Everything that is related to internal equipment of the cover should be manufactured in Russia. And we see the long-lasting demand. Why this program is beneficial? Because it creates a multiplier effect for the entire industry. 10 years of experience brought us to a conclusion. All competences in Russia exists. In Russia, we have all the materials, glass fiber, basalt plastic, and carbon fiber. All raw materials are present in Russia. And the advancement allow us to be competitive not only in Russian market but globally, because Russian market is very little. Overall market stands for 90 to 100 billion dollars, and our volume is less than 1 billion. And we have difficulties competing with larger competitors, and we have the effect of lower base, and the next 10 years will give us completely different stories. And this type of programs of the support of renewable energy, the programs related, as it was mentioned by the Ministry of Industry and Trade, is the important support to grow the market in Russia and abroad in order to have larger ambitions on a global scale and to have players that will feel themselves comfortably on abroad. We need to scale up our market, sustainably grow them, that will allow to then go international, including logistics technology and so on and so forth. For the next 10 years, we need to use a very good goal and guiding light, the Northern Star. It can be done together with the government and the development institutes and companies to understand the composite industry of Russia in the next 10 years, what it will be looking like. What is the development, evolutionary or breakthrough explosion development, allowing us to seize this unique opportunity, knowing that we have the competences required to be a strong players, not only nationally, but internationally. Yes, there is an element of the support architecture that is mentioned before, including my boss. Altogether will give us an opportunity to come up with an important level of competences and be large and present not only in Russia but globally. And I reiterate the ideas mentioned by our colleagues from Rosatom. Yes, we created a JV. It's an investment hub with nice resources that will allow to develop all technologies starting from glass fiber, basalt, plastic, carbon fiber that can be used under all climate conditions, not only in Russia, because we are aiming big, not only for Russian markets, but for international markets as well. Wind energy is important, but it is one of the components for the development of national competences and national leaders. And I would like to mention one challenge quite quickly that definitely exists and goes in line with our discussion. I'm talking about green hydrogen or hydrogen program adopted in Europe, starting from infrastructure and going to the hydrogen market. This market will be rapidly developing over the next 10 years, and the efficiently wind energy, both inland and offshore, mostly offshore, and hydrogen producers from regular sweet water show that we can seize this trend, build unique competences that will not only create efficient wind energy in Russia, but work hand in hand with equipment to manufacture green hydrogen and export them. With final project, it is quite clear the connection with hydrogen car is here, and we need to use conventional materials, composite materials, and composite reinforcements. And this is not the future 50 years along far from us. It's a matter of 10 years maximum. I think that is indeed very important. Alisher, thank you for your presentation. I hope that after 2024, the support program will not be discontinued, and we will see not only manufacturing capacities localization, but we will have competences in design, stability, calculations, science of materials. I'm talking about more generic competences, starting from development, operations, maintenance, and end of operation. And I would like to give the floor to Giovanni Tafaluzzi, Managing Director of Faber company. This question is not often discussed on our forums, but I would like to talk about balloons and high pressure balloons. What's the market? Why it is necessary globally?
Yes. So, dobro den to everybody. Just for me to know how many minutes do I have, understanding that there is a time constraint in the agenda.
You have 9 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. So, I'm the managing director of Faber Industrie, which is an Italian company, market leader in the design, manufacturing, and testing of high-pressure gas cylinders. This is a $2 billion market, and the main applications are in the clean energy, such as compressed natural gas, biomethane, and hydrogen. Industrial applications such as technical, medical, special, food and beverage, and firefighting gases, and finally, air breathing apparatus. So gas is basically everywhere in our life, although it's invisible. Our job is to store it for distribution and use. I was asked in particular to provide a market outlook and the key trends on hydrogen looking at 2030, and more in particular to translate beyond the borders of Russia this opportunity to carbon fiber. So at Faber, we've been working on hydrogen for a very long time. We've been pioneering many applications, starting with fuel cell forklifts, trailers, virtual pipeline, and refilling station. And more recently, with the so-called electric mobility and energy storage for power generation and backup. I'm going to refer to the Hydrogen Council resources in order to come up with some meaningful market estimates. Just for you to know, the Hydrogen Council is a global initiative of leading energy, transport, and industry companies with a united vision and long-term ambition for hydrogen to foster and accelerate this energy transition. It was launched in 2017, and it's a growing coalition of plus 90 members, among them Faber, that was the first Italian company to be part of. So hydrogen is useful for mobility and power, heat for industry and buildings, feedstock for chemicals and products. Why hydrogen is well positioned? It is well positioned to be an energy carrier due to its gravimetric density, which is approximately 3 times more than gasoline and diesel, and more than 100 times the best Tesla battery, which is currently installed into a Model 3 car. On the other end, the volumetric density tells us a different story, and as a result, hydrogen must be therefore either compressed or liquefied. When compressed, usually between 300 and 1,000 bar, depending on the final application, its volumetric density is still lower than gasoline and diesel, however, 2 times better than the Tesla battery. Having said that, let me say that hydrogen today, mostly produced from fossil fuels, is already a market for refining and ammonia, accounting for approximately 100 million tons per year, which is worth approximately $100 billion. So the technology is there for all the application. The key challenge is certainly the cost competitiveness, if referred to a decarbonized hydrogen, and obviously timing. So the latest Hydrogen Council reports show that the cost of hydrogen solution will fall sharply within the next decade and sooner than previously expected. Scale-up of hydrogen production, distribution, equipment, and components manufacturing continues. Cost is projected to decrease by up to 50% by 2030 for a wide range of applications. making the so-called green hydrogen competitive with other low carbon alternatives and in some cases even conventional options, as in the case of heavy-duty trucks and long-range coaches. The two main assumptions obviously behind this forecast is the cost of electricity and power, and obviously the cost of the equipment such as electrolyzer and fuel cells. And the case relies on a learning curve that was experienced in the past with photovoltaic cells and batteries. So let me also add to this point that hydrogen, which comes from nuclear power with carbon capture storage, looks very interesting to this point and by far obviously more competitive than green hydrogen. Moving on into the mobility arena, the hottest topic today in Europe and in Asia is to compare fuel cell electric vehicles and battery electric vehicles against internal combustion engine, and then to see who will be the winner between a fuel cell and battery. And the main metric adopted is total cost of ownership. Some of the performance drivers favoring hydrogen against battery are refilling time, daily mileage, and payload. The last one in particular for trucks. So you can imagine how important is refilling time for vehicles that work in shifts, such as forklifts, taxis, commercial, logistic fleets, where your payback depends on the asset utilization rate. Daily mileage is also defining the minimum requirements, mostly for medium and heavy-duty trucks and buses, where battery can compete below the 200 kilometers mileage. So it's basically more for city cars. Finally, payload is of pivotal importance to maximize the effective transport of goods. And the battery trucks would need to carry a few tons of batteries as per technology of today, which is a nonsense. So to sum up, the report claims hydrogen to be competitive with battery by 2025, except city cars, and competitive for medium heavy-duty trucks and buses, not only with battery, but also with internal combustion engine before 2030. And even with trains, hydrogen is already more competitive than electric catenary for a case with relatively long distance and low frequency. So on looking at the targets set at 2030 by countries like European Union, US, China, and Japan, we are talking about a prospective market of on top of 11 million vehicles, including cars, buses, and trucks. And to build up on what Frederick said before, if a car needs 70 kilograms of carbon fiber, a bus and trucks, we are talking about approximately 300 kilograms of carbon fiber. So the market opportunity for carbon fiber, and I refer to the T700 as reference, is just massive. I played with those market estimates, and considering the use of carbon fiber for composite tanks, which are necessary for their lightness, for their mechanical strength and fatigue performance, I've come up with a carbon fiber need just less than 1 million tons. So as a result, several times what is the current installed capacity in the world. So when it comes to these automotive estimates, the rule of the thumb is to cut the number, but even if we did it by 3, the opportunity would be clear and evident. So this is clearly in addition to what already is happening in Russia, as well as other countries rich of natural gas, with CNG, compressed natural gas, which I personally consider the ideal fuel, despite the fact that, for example, in Europe, Europe doesn't like it very much as per today. And clearly where natural gas is abundant like Russia, and which is not the case of Europe and Asia, the most effective way is to use it directly in mobility, considering the main and immediate environmental and commercial benefit against liquid fuels. Even in a net zero CO2 emission scheme in the long term, natural gas can come from biomethane or synthetic gas or blended with hydrogen, leveraging on existing natural gas infrastructure. So either way, composite tanks would play a leading role to make it happen with needed quantities that simply outstrip the installed capacity worldwide, as already seen with the hydrogen business case. So I tried to be as short as possible. Hopefully I meet this objective. Спасибо.
Вам спасибо большое очень за интересную сейчас
Thank you very much for
Thank you
this
very
very
much for a very
interesting
interesting presentation.
presentation.
Of course, it will be
It will
interesting
be
to see
interesting
when in
to
Moscow,
see
in addition to the electric buses, we will have the
alongside with
hydrogen
electrical
buses.
buses, we will see hydrogen
Of course, there
buses.
is such
Maybe
an
we
event
will
which will
see.
be interesting, which could also probably lead to development of our automotive industry, and maybe they will use composite materials because there is nothing to write home about at the moment. I would like to talk about another industry where composites are actively applied. It's more traditional, I'd say. It's shipbuilding. I'm always interested observing how our shipbuilding colleagues are developing, how they change the technology's application. Composite is not a silver bullet. It's not a solution from all the problems. There are both advantages and disadvantages. And I believe that the key disadvantage of a composite is its cost. And there are other negative properties of composites which metals do not have. And probably shipbuilding is something where I do not understand absolutely where the trend will go of the shipbuilding application of components, where it's not realistic to apply them. That is why I would like to ask a question to Vladimir Seredocha, Director General of Srednyenevsky Shipyard, one of the leaders in the shipbuilding industry. What do you think about this development of composite, where application will grow and where traditional materials will be applied? Thank you very much. Good afternoon, all the participants of the discussion. I know that we are limited in time, and we have almost 60 years of experience of working with composite materials. Of course, there are traditional areas which we never leave. The military ships, military vessels, we continue building them the same way that we did 50 years ago. The technologies are better. We started using vacuum infusion in 2009. The whole ship, the whole vessel is made of composite materials. This area is developing. And we, of course, at the same time, develop our experience in different areas. Now we are involved in civil shipbuilding. In Soviet Union, as you know, everything related with the passenger shipbuilding, the ships were built not in the Soviet Union, something in the Soviet Union, of course, but mainly abroad. That is why the fleet requires renovation. That is why the composite materials have advantage. Because of weight and corrosion, first of all, it's huge advantage compared to traditional aluminum or steel, which is very dangerous materials from the point of view of fire safety and inflammability. That is why our civil division is developing. 5 years ago, we started the project and we finished it 3 years ago. Together with Roznano, we used composite materials because they produced materials for us, carbon fiber catamarans for 150 passengers. This direction will develop. There are leasing schemes provided by the government. That is why I believe that Very soon, we will see these vessels not only in St. Petersburg, but in other regions and cities of the country. That is why this area is very prospective, and I believe that it's a prospect not of a couple of years, but for a longer period of time. And the next passenger vessels with the 5 to 6 decks, that is why the composite application there means a lot, because these structures are large, their dimensions are huge, and their weight is tremendous. We start a new project of large passenger vessels for northern territories, and in 2 years the first 2 vessels will be produced for navigation at Yenisei waters from Krasnoyarsk to Dugin, where we apply all the technologies. We have technologies, conventional technologies, application of non-ferrous alloys, steel and aluminum, symbiosis of technologies. This is about the shipbuilding. We have other different projects with smaller vessels, different purposes. You know that the trend of development of the motorboat is very popular. 30 or 50 meters long is very popular dimension. The global trend is more than 100 meters. Especially this is popular for southern countries. The corrosion issue is one of the key issues. That is why I believe that there is no alternative to composites. In addition to shipbuilding, we have other areas of activities, in particular wind energy, which is recently mentioned. Together with Humatex, we've been working 3 years ago, and now we are suppliers of some components for wind farms, wind turbines. We produce, it's a serial item productions. Of course, we would like to continue this program. In addition to that, we work in the other energy sector. There is a project PITER. Together with the Rosatom division, we produce element of nuclear reactor, which will be built by 2035. Technologies which we have and which we had are being transformed. That is why, from the point of view of perspective, we can see a little bit another perspective, not just the narrow market or a niche, but uniting the markets in order to transform our technological capabilities. We have a project Digital Shipyard, which will start in 2022, and the key task is to build a chain of transformation of digital technologies, starting from the customer, then the designer, plant, and the suppliers, not only of equipment, but also material. That is why the importance of having the information, what they do, how they do, when they do it, is very important for us. It's crucial in order to simulate the process, have digital twins for digital testing. It's not only important for technology, but also for managerial solutions. The development of composite industry depends on the implementation of digital technologies. In our country, the testing basis is not enough, especially in terms of environmental safety and fire safety, and the digital testings. Simulations are very important. For me, as an end manufacturer, this connection between the end manufacturer like me, like us, and manufacture of different components and materials is very important.
На самом деле, да, было приятно услышать, что вы тоже
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to know that you also apply vacuum infusion technology. We use it for aircraft engineering. I totally agree with you that digital model and digital simulation is a key factor. Some years ago, we didn't have an opportunity to simulate the infusion process. Now there are software we can simulate
распределение напряжений в изделии.
distribution of loads and stresses, its thermal response, how it's developed, and we can predict what will be the violations from the theoretical contour depending on the loads, on the stresses on this structure, and to amend fitting to the necessary level. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. I would like to give the floor to our next speaker, Mikhail Livshits, chairman of RATEC, board of directors, famous company, which works with turbines. Probably you apply classical metals in your activities, but it's always interesting for me to learn, are there any possibilities to use metals and composites together? We think a lot about that because there are some properties of metals which are advantages. There are some properties of composites which are very good. And taking the best of the two type of materials, we can create something better. What's happening in your industry? Do you apply composites? What are the trends? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to stop this propaganda because everybody, all the speakers, all of a sudden believe that composites are some structures related with fiber and polymers. If we read the definition of composites, it's a use of a number of materials with certain properties to receive new properties without losing the properties of the initial materials. That is why I would like to go back to the name of our forum, Composites Without Borders, and to go beyond the borders set by the forum. Moreover, it happened that we work in the construction of steam turbines, of electrical power station, turbines for nuclear shipbuilding. We produce components for jet engines, almost all of them which are produced in our country. We produce the solid oxide fuel elements. All the mentioned industries are part of our activities. And I would like to say a number of points. One, composites are wider than fiber and polymers. Plywood is a composite as well. Of course, plywood is a composite material. And when producing turbines, including gas turbines especially, alloys with nickel, heat resistant, have their limit 1200 degrees, which limit the efficiency of turbines. And the next step is to have the metal ceramic composite materials which allow to increase the temperature and efficiency of a turbine. That is why there is ceramic materials, fiber ceramics, and we move somewhere to increase efficiency with a certain speed and taking into account the properties of materials which make the aircraft fly. What you do with these polymers and these fibers, same. For fuel elements, ceramic, nickel dioxide, zirconium dioxide, cobalt, strontium, and other elements are added to have better efficiency working under the temperatures which are provided. Going back to Kirill presentation, I would talk about the machine building and the alloys which are applied. Alloys are possible to do of something that is possible to melt and to smelt actually. We can start with one metal, then we can go to another metal using different properties, characteristics, price level, and as a result we have materials with the preset properties. As for the penetration of different industries by composites, what's important here, it's the different technologies of application, its development of libraries, of standard articles, and work with technologists, engineers of these traditional production sites where we can go. I'm talking about that because we have a certain set of production sites. If you want your material to be applied in our plant, you should have interest not only by our engineers, but there should be students trained to apply the technologies and materials that you produce to provide some profile, further advanced training for chief engineers and chief designers. Even if we take turbine, it's metal inside, it's metal and ceramic components, noise isolation and heat isolation, we can apply something else. The composites are not only fiber something. Technology of application, training of specialists is, to my point of view, the key factor of promotion of any composite, from ceramics to metal ceramics and fiber and polymers. And again, there are many contradictions between metal and the composite. You say that there's something opposite. If we take like wind energy, it's very interesting that nothing was replaced there and it's moving everything, it's a driver. That is why we shall look into the future, what can happen tomorrow, and this is where we can combine interdisciplinary approach between metal and non-metal, ceramic and non-ceramic, and fiber, polymer composites. That would be it, and once again, education and technology of application. Thank you very much. I totally agree with you. Of course, probably we made our discussion very narrow subject. In these spheres where people present that, the polymers which were mentioned by us are applied. It's great that you draw attention to the definition. I did not compare and I did not say that metals and composites compete. Of course, there are spheres when metal is the only solution. We both know that there are advantages and disadvantages. This is therapy, for example. Somewhere it's a good property of composites. Composites are not a silver bullet, is not a cannot provide the revolution. Probably it's arguable, but nevertheless, it's one of the materials where we have certain advantages in certain areas, but not everywhere. There are many disadvantages. And I can see that we are on the very first step of development of this industry. We will have to develop new technological solutions. What's happening from the point of view of design? People don't know how to take advantage of the best properties of new materials because nobody teaches them. My chief engineer says it's impossible to do so. And I ask why, and he says, because we never did it, because nobody taught me. That's the key issue. That's the very important issue. We don't do that. Full stop. It's impossible because it's impossible. Full stop. It was something like Karl Marx wrote about that. And we need to change our approaches. We need to change our understanding and perception. And I understand that we need to find the approaches to the design process, to engineering. We produce Boeing, Airbus. We produce black aluminum. The same structure that we had in metal are made with composites. We introduced all the worst properties of composites somewhere where we shall hide them. In some years, I believe that we will combine composites, metals, and ceramics. It will be another approach to the production, to the design and manufacturing. I would just talk with the colleagues who are here from other industries who did not join our discussion. We have Daria Borisova, managing director of Sibur company.
Честно говоря, не был в
I
теме, что
never knew what's happening in your industry. Do you apply composites, any composites, which I mentioned, colleagues mentioned, Mikhail mentioned, and how you see the development of your company using composites in your area?
Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues. Yes, indeed. When I was preparing myself to this forum, we analyzed with the colleagues where do we apply composites. We do have some examples, however, in repair activities when we fight against leakages from equipment or pipelines. The solution is in place since 2012, 2013. This is the solution sort of we tried, we piloted, it worked, we use it. We test some other solutions. Couple of examples. We use reservoirs from composites that is being used in harsh conditions. On our ZAPC site, we use composite reservoirs. We also use pipelines made from composites, including our JV Rusvinil. There is a part of pipeline manufactured from composites. There's another project that is being analyzed, and by that I mean composite reinforcements in construction, because now we are designing several buildings on Amur field. I echo my colleagues. You know, efficiency is a key. Efficiency is all about TCO, taking into account procurement, maintenance, and how easy it is to install and maintain. This will contribute to the capex decrease during construction works. To see it clearly, to practically back the feasibility of technology, I like to say that we are open for a cooperation. We would like to apply new solutions on our existing and upcoming venues. We manufacture polymer materials, and we are interested in the development of super plastic and super polymers. They are binders that have been mentioned. We want to be part of the value creation chain, polymer with fiber. We want to develop further the manufacturing of modern polymer materials used as binders. We have a portfolio of developments in this field, starting from the use of conventional materials and going up to the possibility of the production in Russia of super construction materials. This is it. Thank you.
Отрасли, которые вы представляете,
I would
они,
like
конечно, старались
the
сформировать
industries that you represent
понимание,
to
что же вы хотите от композитчиков. Вот сейчас
make us understand what do you want from composite experts, because we need to bring on board the clients, you and scientists working with the materials. You can say, what do you need? And the scientist can say what he or she can do. Like, for instance, retrofitting of pipelines using composites. And I struggled with to come up with a economically viable solution with the required strength characteristics that can be applied in the field. This goal is quite complicated that should be solved, and we would like to solve it together with our dear clients. And this can be a breakthrough in terms of consumption volume. And I hope we will see it becoming a reality in the upcoming years, sooner in Russia than abroad. I see this concept, and I would like to give the floor to Alexei Laptev, Business Development and Corporate Venture Project Director from Severstyle. I remember talking with you on Inaprom. It's a different business. You are in steel. Do you want to be part of the new business, or you are just an observer? Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues. Thank you very much for the invitation. This discussion is very interesting and relevant to us. Why relevant? Because we see components as a very interesting field for our business development. Why this field is interesting for us as a business development? Basic facts show it all. Composite market grows at 8% annually. Steel market grows 3-4% in under the best conditions, and in the nearest future the growth will be 1-2% only. It means that composites will cannibalize part of the market. It's a macro observation. And this year, colleagues told that composites will lose 4% and steel will lose only 2% of the market. But it's an exception, and it's due to this temporary collapse. We have several examples globally of the industries where composites are cannibalizing our steel market share. Aerospace, of course, but this is not the part of our business portfolio. But let's say shipbuilding, it was mentioned by our colleagues and several examples were given. And Mr. Rakhmanov showed certain specific figures. Yes, in light vessels, composites are being used quite importantly. In big ships, only 6% of parts are made from composites, but this percentage will grow. Plastics and composites won the market of urban pipelines and housing utilities against steel in foreign markets, and now we see the same trend happening in Russia. In our philosophy, the center is occupied not by the market, the product, or the steel. Our approach is client-centric. We study clients' requirements and we are agnostics in a way. If we see that composites are more competitive. We would really like to go to this market, engage ourselves in experts who developed prime products in order to help them conquer bigger markets. Since we know how to work on mass market because they have their own rules, they have their own client relations, we have very solid client connections in Russia and abroad, have strong logistics and sales department. The only thing we know is a good product, and we are searching for this kind of products. And we see great potential of composites that can be used in energy industry. And by that, I mean oil and gas first and foremost, and hydrogen energy, of course. And we see strong interests from our clients from oil and gas in respect of the composite solutions. And we want and we are ready to develop required solutions for our clients together with our partners from composite industry. We've been doing client optimization, fine-tuning for steel for many, many years. We know the processes, and we are ready to replace steel with composites in this equation to proceed to the same functions. With many companies participating in this forum, we are engaged in negotiations that are on different stages. Please join us in doing so. The biggest challenge in composites, in order to bring it to the mass market, is all about production cost. We see some potential from composites. Steel processing techniques are very mature, and we fight for every single dollar. But we see a large window of opportunities in composites. And using our venture department, we invest in several solutions that will allow to decrease production cost in composites. And second major challenge is related to the development of full cycle economy. And I'm, of course, talking about recycling. It's not enough to come up with a quality product. You need to show how you will to recycle it. Steel has a very strong position. It can be recycled 100% with no residues. It's a very green material, actually. With composites, this share accounts for 1 to 2% only. It's a little challenge for us that we keep track on and that we work on. The solution is yet to be here. And composites are not only about plastic, and I quote the previous speaker, and we are interested, of course, in working with timber-based composites. And we are working with the colleagues from this field as well. Thank you very much. Cardboard, not only cardboard, timber composites. There are much more timber-based composites than plastic-based. And for instance, I live in a house made from laminated veneer lumber. And you remember clay and hay. Wait. The first composite appeared 100,000 years ago. And it's stone and resin element that was connected to the lens. Yeah, technology development started years and years and centuries ago. Composites are very in vogue. Many solutions in aircraft industry. I will not upset many of you. are based not only on technology, but because it's a trend, and trend sells. It's not only a trend, it's something I want to be like others situation. Like my neighbor bought an electrical vehicle. I'm gonna buy myself one as well. But we still burn coal to manufacture electric vehicle, but it doesn't matter. Uh, and this subject is not only to substitute one material with another material, but it's an appearance of new needs. I will repeat 2 seconds only. In our industry, in aviation and shipbuilding, these industries are quite young in terms of composites, and metal processing dates back thousands years ago. Remember uh, powder rifles when they appeared? They were not much better as compared to X-bows or crossbow. And look now, powder guns versus crossbows. The gap is huge now, and we need materials in different industries, and we need to become massive. And thank you to Rosatom, because initially this company was specialized only on nuclear technology. Now they expanded their portfolio, taking risks, investing in and different materials. And I hope that experts on chemicals, on petrochemicals, will start working on composites and will not be afraid of the first stage where you don't see any benefits. When you toss in the trash 9 of 10 of new materials, but one will be a breakthrough. Automotive, engines, aviation, everything has been already done uh, aerodynamic wise, railroad, spaceships. We fine tune, but we don't see major evolution, and it is required. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Fakhridinov, chairman of the board of Roscomposite company. Where are issues? Where can we see breakthrough points? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Very interesting discussion. Many interesting things have been said. I see that I don't have much time, so I would like to highlight a couple of important ideas. The market is here. The cost revenue situation is quite fine, because without the support of the ministry, we were not able to come up with industry standards. Now we have around 500 new standards. It's a minimum required amount for the development of composites market. And I would like to talk about barriers or impediments. The introduction of new materials, it takes around 3 years. It's a minimum time span, because according to our experience, we need up to 5 years to use a new material. First, we need to convince the client, and the government plays a major role in the market, and SOEs and other public companies are not keen to use new materials. Then we need to convince the designer. Then there's a design stage of the product and of the material. Then we bring the dossier to the state expertise, and the expertise doesn't really understand what's in it. And almost in every composite material, price is an important factor as compared to conventional materials. Interaction with large clients, including state-owned enterprises, shows us that price is the key. So even if we manage to convince state expertise, we are not able to sell the solution to the client because the price is too high. For 10 years, I've been hearing the idea that we need to shift towards life cycle contracts. There are a lot of talking, but not a lot of doing. In the Duma, they discuss that some qualification requirements will be including to the suppliers of new materials. And I hope that new materials and composites industry will be growing fast. We take a look at composite reinforcement, and you see that it is being used in single-family home constructions. There are, of course, a lot of little players that don't really respect the quality of the final product, but composite materials market is the fastest growing one. I don't say that we need to discontinue all certification. I think that we need to bring back uh, new materials reinforcement certification, but just trust a little bit more to the producers. Today's system shows that modern barriers, certification, and long time required for material implementation and development limit considerably investment opportunities for the companies that are ready to participate. And if we forget about vertically integrated companies, most players are really tiny, are really little in size. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will say a couple of words about that. We often meet complaints how long it takes to introduce a composite. Colleagues, I would be honest with you, it depends on the head of the company and the top management who introduces that. And he does that only if something urgent happens, because aviation, aircraft engineering is very conservative industry, but it took us 6 months to start serial production. Yes, it's extraordinary event, which we had to take into account, which we had to live with. Nobody will ever remove the issues of certification, of qualification, because it's a question of safety. Many procedures are always considered to be bad. We have many good things. Maybe you would summarize, Alexandra. Actually, the first 2 sessions about technological trends and about industrial application of composites were very detailed, and I believe that there is no contradiction of metals and composites. It's only for the sake of discussion. It's digital design of new materials and advanced products made of them. On the one hand, we believe in the good future of composites. On the other hand, we understand that everything will develop, and the alloys, altogether we shall find these advanced characteristics in combination of different materials. Thank you very much, all the participants of our forum and this panel, for very interesting and productive discussion and information. Mikhail. Actually, you raised a very complicated subject, implementation of composites. It's not implementation of composites, introduction to composites topic. It's topic of introduction of something new. In English shipyards, they build the ship using Humatex material, very small ship nevertheless. Our products, such as air composites, the threshold of implementation has the right for an error, which is determined by the regulator in favor of our consumer. When we say that we need to introduce something new, the first question is risks. If the customer provides us with opportunity in 6 months to introduce the material to produce wings, it happened only because the other risk was more serious one. And the question to regulator, to the Ministry of Industry and Trades, to top management of holdings, in order to introduce something new, your enterprises, our customers need to have some more freedom from the point of view of trial, even if it doesn't work. That's all I wanted to say. Of course, I agree with you, Mikhail. There are some things which are not stimulating innovations, and it's conservative, it's people's life. That is why when I'm talking about 1 year, 6 months, it's just because we used all the resources which we accumulated. It's like a fat in the body. We use that, it's a minimum. This risk is not something to be afraid of. We have new industry as a result. I would like to thank all the colleagues who took part in our discussion. I believe that the task to deliver this message, in order to make a leap, a breakthrough, we need all the people involved in the industry to think what else we can do to develop our industry using new materials. Maybe it's material studies, maybe we have no idea what an industry requires, and you, people working in this industry, you should say that something's wrong here, it's very expensive, it's very complicated, it's very slow here. Maybe new materials will give us some support or will contribute and facilitate our production. It's not about composite, it's about new technologies in general. Maybe it will go faster than it moves now. Thank you very much, everybody, for discussion, and goodbye.